Welcome to this Mace Flow workout. Coach Lochlainn here, and today we are doing the Guardian's Arc Flow, a dynamic sequence involving an overhead shield, a precise arrow, and a powerful uppercut, all with some slick footwork and transitions. We're gonna cover this flow in 5 rounds, so grab your mace and let's get moving. Round 1 is going to begin with an overhead shield, and what this is going to look like with the footwork included is that we are simply going to be alternating from one side to the other, switching like so in this overhead shield pattern and stepping behind in that dragon step. Now to perform it, we are going to first start with just the overhead shield. So I'll teach you how to do that. We'll come into warrior stance to start, both hands bottom of the mace, and I'll bring one of my hands to the top of the mace, palm facing out. From here, I'm simply gonna bring the mace horizontal over my head in this nice, strong, stable position. I wanna have everything stacked so my spine is nice and long, and I wanna make sure that my wrist is right over my elbow. And that is going to ensure that I am the most stable. Now to switch sides, I'm gonna bring the mace back down. My hand near the tail of the mace will open, palm facing out, slide up the mace. Palms are both facing out, grab hold, and switch. And so you can see I've remained in an over grip, and I'll push into the other shield. And so I will simply alternate like so for the overhead shield. Now for the dragon step, I'll have you set your mace down for a second, and this is all that we're going to do. I am going from my standing position to take one of my legs and step behind. Now this can be really nice and deep, or it can be really shallow. It's entirely up to you. The key is that I want one foot pointing straight forward and the other foot pointing straight to the side. So my heels are pointing in perpendicular directions. And that is going to be my lower body. So you can try that out real quick if you'd like. And that's all that there is. So now let's do our full round 1. You can pick up the mace, and we are simply going to be doing alternating overhead shields with those dragon steps. So come into warrior stance. One hand top of the mace, palm faces out, and I'm gonna step behind with the same side leg as the high hand of the mace. So step behind, drop into that shield, nice and stable. Come back up, palm facing out, switch to the other side, opposite leg steps behind, and continue. And remember, whichever hand is highest, that same side leg will step behind. You can go nice and slow in the transition. Just make sure you're moving smoothly and with stability. That is the goal here. You'll also see I'm looking towards the head of the mace. And that is so I can keep it lined up, keeping the mace lined up directly over my head. Well done, we're gonna do 10 more. Five more. Last one. Push back to warrior stance wherever you are and take some rest. Well done. So that is our first round. Hopefully you're feeling that in your shoulders a little bit. Hopefully you got your heart rate up. And now, after I catch my breath, I'll be diving into round 2. Our second round of this workout is the power archer. Now the power archer flow is a really nice and simple one. What it looks like from warrior stance is this. I'll be stepping out, prayer switch into arrow, and bring it across my body, back down, and continue into another arrow. So nice and simple flow. We have a lateral lunge with an arrow. That's all. So I'm gonna break it down a little bit more slowly, and then we're gonna do our second round of the workout with this flow. So to learn it, you can come into warrior stance with me. One hand top of the mace, opposite leg steps out, and the mace should be parallel to my straight leg. From here, I will prayer switch the mace across my body, hip to shoulder, and you can either do a half arrow, extending the mace head over the elbow, or you can do a full arrow. From here, I'll pull the mace in, across my body, drop it down, and then prayer switch once more to the other side, and simply continue. And this is all that the power archer is. So now that you've gotten the hang of it, let's do a full workout round of it. So we're going to come into warrior stance, both hands bottom of the mace, and we'll prepare ourselves for this flow with a nice breath in and breath out. One hand top of the mace, opposite leg out, prayer switch, arrow. Bring it across the body, switching which leg is bent, drop it down, switch into arrow. Continue moving fluidly. Don't worry about going too fast. Focus on making it smooth. And one tip I'll call out is that if you're getting tricked up on how your feet should be pointing as you switch, you will see that for me, as I switch, I'm switching the, I suppose, toes of my feet, pivoting on the heel as I switch position, so that as I drop into a lunge, I have my knee over my toes. Four more. Last one. And you can push back to warrior stance. Very nicely done. That is round two, the power archer flow. And next, we're going to move into alternating uppercuts. Now, alternating uppercuts is going to have us standing roughly tall. Now, as we dive into this flow, you can also drop into a deeper horse stance and pivot through, as you'll see me do in just a moment. But just know, you don't have to include the lower body if you need to give your legs a rest. So what this next drill looks like is simply going to be from warrior stance, one hand top of the mace, palm faces out once more, drop it down across the body. I'm gonna pivot to the side and uppercut. Bring it back across my body into center, switch hands, and continue to the other side. And you can see I'm going from warrior stance, one hand top of the mace, pivot my body and uppercut. And that is all that this movement is. And again, you'll see I'm in a tall stance here, and you can also do a nice deep stance if you like as well. A little trickier on balance as you pivot through this one. So that is the uppercut, alternating uppercuts to either side. This is our round three. So pause the video if you need another rest. Otherwise, let's get into this third round. So I'm going to come into warrior stance once more, both hands bottom of the mace. Breath in, breath out. One hand top of the mace, palm out. And from here, you can drop the mace down, pivot to the side, and uppercut. And then drop it back down, bring it through center, and switch to the other side, and continue. Get nice and comfortable with this hand transition. Keeping the mace vertical and still while you switch. Exhale sharply as you uppercut. Four more. Two more. Come back to warrior stance and rest. Nicely done. And now we'll be moving on to round number 4, which is going to be the full upper body of the Guardian's Arc flow. Now what this means is that we are going to be transitioning from an overhead shield through a drop switch into an arrow, and then into an uppercut. And then finally, we'll switch to the other side into an overhead shield, drop switch, an arrow once more, and finish in the uppercut. So all we're doing, even if that looks very fancy, is we're going from overhead shield to arrow to uppercut. And the way that we're going to be doing that is through transitions. And because there are 3 different landmarks we're working with, there are 3 transitions. So let's learn those transitions right now, and then we'll do our round 4. So to practice, you can come into warrior stance. One hand rises top of the mace, palm faces out, and overhead shield. Now here's our first transition. I'm gonna pull the mace in towards my body, flipping the tail over to the side, and then I'm gonna have my free hand, thumb pointing towards me, grab right underneath the head of the mace, and then I'll drop it down. So it's a drop switch. So all that I did was I went from an overhead shield, brought the mace in, flipped the tail over, and caught the mace right next to the head and let the momentum swing it down. I let gravity do the work. So that's our first transition. Now into the second main landmark, I'm going to flip the mace over into an arrow. Nice and strong, just like we practiced. Next, I'm gonna do that second major transition. So I'll pull the mace in so it's easier. Hand on the tail of the mace, palm faces out. Grabs hold of the head of the mace, so I'm in an over grip once more. Pivot and uppercut. Now, here's our uppercut, of course, our third landmark. Now we have our third transition. So I'm going to bring the mace back to the front, palm faces out on the tail once more, slides up the head of the mace, and flips it over into overhead shield. Now this is arguably the trickiest transition, so I'm gonna do it again. So all that I did was I went from uppercut, I brought it back around, so the mace head points up. Tail hand slides up the mace, palm facing out, flipping over, and catching an overhead shield. And now we can go back through the drop switch. So I'll flip the mace over, catch the mace, arrow, pull it in, palm faces out, pivot, uppercut. Bring it back through the center, palm faces out once more, and into overhead shield. And those are the 3 landmarks and the 3 transitions combined. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now we're gonna do our round 4 and continuously practice this for a few moments. So you can come back into warrior stance, breath in, breath out. From here, one hand top of the mace, palm faces out, overhead shield. Flip the tail over, thumb points towards me, drop switch. Flip the mace over into arrow. Pull the mace in, palm facing out, slides up, pivot into uppercut. From here, bring it back to the front. Mace points up, palm slides up the mace, grab hold, and turn it into an overhead shield. Flip the mace over, thumb points towards me, catch, arrow, bring it in. Palm at the tail of the mace faces out, grabs hold of the head of the mace, pivot and uppercut. Bring it back to the front. Palm at the tail of the mace faces out, grabs hold, switch into overhead shield. Flip the mace over, thumb points towards me, drop switch. Arrow. Bring it in, palm faces out, pivot and uppercut. Bring it back through center, mace points up, palm slides up the mace facing out, overhead shield. Flip the mace over, thumb points towards me, drop switch. Arrow. Bring it in, palm faces out, pivot and uppercut. Pivot back to the front, palm slides up the mace, overhead shield. Flip the mace over, drop switch. Arrow. Bring it in, palm faces out, pivot and uppercut. Bring it back through center, mace points up, palm facing out, flip and overhead shield. Drop switch, flipping the mace over, arrow. Bring it in, palm faces out, pivot uppercut. Pivot back to the front, mace points up, palm out. From here, bring the mace in, again, drop switch, drop it down. Arrow. Bring the mace in, palm faces out, pivot and uppercut. Bring it back to vertical, palm faces out, last one, shield. It's our last round here. Flip the mace over, drop switch. Arrow. Bring it in, palm faces out, pivot and uppercut. And from here, you can just come back to warrior stance and rest. Very nicely done. That's tricky. That's our round 4. Again, just the upper body. Now, if you are struggling with this, I highly recommend that you go back through and do another round 4 and or watch the instructional portion of round 4, because round 5 is going to add in footwork. And since the footwork is a little bit challenging as well, you're gonna wanna make sure that you actually have the upper body fully mastered before you move on. If you're feeling pretty strong with the upper body, then it's time to move on to round 5 with the footwork. Now I'm gonna demonstrate, and you can actually join me here, and you can simply set your mace down for a moment, and we're just going to practice the footwork involved. Now that we've done all that upper body work, we'll let the upper body rest and do the footwork. So the footwork for our round 5 is relatively simple, but it does have a little bit of nuance to it. So you can come to one side of your space, wherever you are. Yoga mat is a really great place to begin. So I'll come to one side of my yoga mat, and I'll bring that one leg behind, dragon step, just like we did earlier. Now, I highly recommend you don't go too deep into your dragon step, because next, after we dragon step, we're gonna step out into a lateral lunge. Finally, we'll be pivoting into a front lunge. And then from there, pivot back to the front, dragon step, and step out. Pivot, back to the front, step behind, and step out. Pivot, back to the front, and then dragon step, and step out. Pivot one more time, come back to the front, and you can push back to center. So that is our base footwork. We are doing a dragon step, stepping out from the dragon step into lateral lunge, pivoting into front lunge, then coming back to lateral lunge before going into dragon step on the other side. Now, before I even show you how the upper body matches to this, I just want you to think about this for a second and think about how each of the moves that we've done in this workout can be strung together in a sequence using that footwork. Feel free to pause if you want one more time to think about it. This is definitely where the magic of mace flow happens, is in adding footwork. Now, if you're ready for the practical portion, then grab your mace. And we're gonna finish off the Guardian's Arc flow. So here we go. gonna come into warrior stance. Again, I'm gonna find one edge of my mat. Breath in, breath out. From here, one hand rises top of the mace, same side leg as the high hand, we'll step behind, dragon step. Overhead shield. Now, we're gonna do our transition. So I'm gonna flip the mace over, catch, thumb pointing towards me, and step out as I drop switch. Flip the mace over into arrow. Bring the mace back in, palm faces out, switch, and pivot into uppercut. Bring it back through center, palm faces out, step behind, dragon step on the other side. Flip the mace over, thumb points towards me, and there you are, back in lateral lunge with the drop switch. Arrow, bring the mace in, palm faces out, grabs hold of the top of the mace, pivot and uppercut. Pivot back to the front, palm faces out, step behind, dragon step. Pull the mace in, thumb points towards me, drop switch. Flip the mace over, bring it in, pivot, uppercut. Bring it back through the center, palm faces out, dragon step. Flip the mace over, drop switch, arrow. Bring it in, uppercut. Back to the front, dragon step as you overhead shield. Bring it in, drop switch. Flip into arrow. Bring the mace in, palm faces out, uppercut. Back through the center, palm faces out, dragon step. Flip the mace over, drop switch. Arrow. Bring the mace in, palm faces out, pivot and uppercut. Bring the mace back through the center, palm faces out, dragon step. Pull the mace in, drop switch. Arrow. Bring it in, palm faces out, pivot uppercut. Bring it back through center, palm faces out, shield. Flip it over, drop switch. Arrow. Bring it in, flip into uppercut. Back through center, overhead shield. Last round of the flow, drop switch. Arrow. Bring it in, palm faces out. Back through center, palm faces out once more. Drop switch. Arrow. Bring it in, palm faces out. Pivot to uppercut. Back through the center, palm faces out. And actually I was wrong, I just got excited. You can come back to warrior stance. Very nicely done. So that's the Guardian's Arc. Now, if you're feeling strong in this flow and you want to do another round of it, go back and redo round 5. See if you can smooth it out, see if you can make it fluid, see if you can make it feel strong and stable. That's the goal. So congratulations on doing the Guardian's Arc flow. If you want to learn more about mace flow and how to design your own Steel Mace workouts, I invite you to download the ebook in the description below. It's completely free and covers everything from mace control to how to design your own Steel Mace workouts. So get access to that right now. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching and subscribe to this YouTube channel, and I will see you on the next Flow Made Simple video.